Hey everybody, it's Sam from Wrestling Overtime, and we're here to give you our Raves and Rants review of AEW's Double or Nothing pay-per-view on May 23rd, 2020. Now, this is AEW's first pay-per-view during the pandemic and its first pay-per-view without fans. Most of the matches tonight were live at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. However, the Stadium Stampede match, which closed out the pay-per-view as a co-main event, was shot cinematic style, and it is my understanding was taped the night before, which would have been Friday night, into early Saturday morning. It was said that they finished up about 5 a.m. and then were editing it. This pay-per-view was nothing like WrestleMania or Money in the Bank. I can say that. I'm not sure what the difference was. I'm not sure whether it was the build-up of the matches or that they had wrestlers there. They obviously had some celebrities there with Mike Tyson. Vicky Guerrero was there. I don't know if it was that, because I usually don't pay a whole lot of attention to the crowd unless they're chanting something or a wrestler is getting involved with them. So I want to say that it was kind of the build-up of the matches, but I also think that the AEW wrestlers are truly taking it upon themselves to realize that they are entertaining the TV crowd. And they have really taken to the camera being straight on to the stage and making sure that they are showing their emotions more. They also have a tendency to talk to each other more, talk trash. Any wrestlers that are not in the match, that are standing around the ring in the crowd area, they don't care to holler at them either or say things to them. And neither do the wrestlers that are there watching the match. They don't care to yell out things. And I think that brings on a totally different experience. And I did really enjoy it. Now, tuning in to the buy-in, that is what AEW calls their segment that they offer up for free, whether it be on YouTube or I know some of them have been on TNT or on Fight TV. Those shows in the past, I think, have been fairly good. They don't do as many video packages, in my opinion, as what WWE does. They do more interviews or more vignettes showing wrestlers get ready. Sometimes they show things that AEW has taped and put up on YouTube, such as Being the Elite or The Road to. But they also always try to put on a match like WWE does. Tonight's buy-in match was Best Friends versus Private Party. Now, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I just talked about them building stories, and this wasn't a story that was really built. The Best Friends have been on TV a lot. they've been kind of a fixture over the last couple of weeks, whereas Private Party, it's my understanding, was caught in some states' travel ban, so they could not get down to Florida and be a part of AEW's television show. However, if any of you have been watching Being the Elite, they have been being featured in it, taping their own segments and sending them in. This ended up being a really fast-paced match, and it should have gotten me pumped up and excited. However, it was full of moves that, to me, didn't look right. Now, I'm not a wrestler, and I'm definitely not a wrestling expert, as those of you who have been listening to me know. But they seem like they either didn't connect or they weren't anticipated in the correct way. Something like that. They just kind of seemed off. And I don't know whether that's where Private Party hasn't been working a lot and definitely hasn't been working with Best Friends a lot. I'm not sure what the cause of that was. I did love that Private Party did the G9, which was Crime Time's move in tribute to Shad Gaspar, passing away this week at the beach, trying to save his son. And that was a touching moment, and I really enjoyed that. However, with this match, I'm not sure if I was on the fence about buying the pay-per-view, that this match would have swayed me to buy it. I'm not even sure that this buy-in hour or half an hour would have swayed me to buy it. I think if I was on the fence, I don't know, I may have taken my chance and just kind of plugged into Twitter and listened to people who were actually getting it, giving me, the blow-by-blow of what was going on and telling me who won. Because this match was just okay. Best Friends finally hit the strong zero for the win, which, like I said, was expected. They have been the ones on TV and the ones that fans were probably paying attention to and rooting for. To start the actual Double or Nothing pay-per-view, though, we got the Casino Ladder match. And this match was to earn a shot at the AEW World Championship. Now, I like that they switched it up. Last year, they had the Battle Royal, and while I enjoyed that, it was the start of AEW. Everybody was kind of celebrating. I love that Battle Royal and the comedic moments of it. And, Jimmy Havoc and Joey Janela and the cigarette and the staple gun and all of that. I was glad that they did something new. Wasn't sure about them having a ladder match, though, where they were going to have something hanging. And it ended up being a poker chip. I wasn't real sure about that because WWE just did Money in the Bank. And, when I heard it was going to be a poker chip, of course, my first thoughts are, is someone going to actually carry around a massive poker chip and, hit Jon Moxley over the head and say, I choose you, here we go. Wasn't real sure of that. But it was announced before the match that Rey Fenix was hurt. He was unable to be in the match, and Joey Janela was replacing him. You guys found out actually at on the Dynamite episode that I did, that Rey Fenix, I saw him get hurt. I called that one. And then you heard in a previous episode on News and Updates that he was being pulled from this match. Didn't really know who they were going to choose. Doesn't surprise me that they chose Joey Janela, since he's known for using ladders, for jumping off ladders, for getting crazy. And so I was hoping that this would add an extra element to this match. I really liked how they did this match. They didn't throw everybody in the ring at once and say, go to town and grab some ladders and knock each other around. They started off with two people who just happened to be from the same team. And we'll get to that in a minute. But after 2 minutes, which they kept 2 minutes on the actual screen clock up on stage. So there was no monkey business, no funny business of adding time or shortening time or anything. You knew it was 2 minutes and you knew when the countdown was going to be. They added a new person. And the rules were the match could end at any time. So there was no advantage to being last. Which, you know, in Battle Royals, that's what you see is a lot of times they have people that come out last and they get an advantage because they don't have to take on as many people. Well, no, two people could start this match, and if one of them knocked the other one down or knocked them out or incapacitated them, tied them up, whatever, climbed the ladder, got the poker chip, hey, match over. And so I thought that part was really interesting. It gave a different side of things. Now, I think AEW in the future when they do these is going to have one end early in order to get people to believe that. Because obviously they didn't do that tonight. All 9 participants actually got out and there was a free-for-all. But you knew there were going to be some wild high spots, but because you didn't know who was coming out, you didn't know when those high spots were going to happen and by who and what exactly was going to go on. I enjoyed, like I said, they opened with both members of SCU that were entered. Frankie Kazarian come out first, and Scorpio Sky came out second. And they immediately realized, oh no, we got 2 minutes. And they both acted like they weren't real sure what to do and how to go about doing it against each other. Of course, it only took them, I don't know, about 15 seconds to figure out, you know, what matters is that poker chip and getting that chance. And luckily, through being the Elite and Dynamite and the Buy-In show, we had seen them talk this through, and they had both agreed that it was every man for themselves. So we did. We saw them, you know, try to knock each other down and climb the ladder and get it going. I'm going to be real honest with you. I feel like in this match, I felt like Darby Allin kind of stole the show. I know every pay-per-view I say or somebody says Darby Allin stole the show, but I mean, he kind of did. He took full advantage of being in this ladder match, and he did some nice spots. the spot that he did that you guys want to find, either, like I said, on YouTube, on AEW's clips, on AEW.com, you want to find where Darby Allin actually brings his skateboard up on top of a ladder and jumps off of it, landing the skateboard on what was supposed to be a wrestler. However, they got off the ladder in time. And Darby Allin actually hit his skateboard with his feet on it into the ladder, and it crashed the ladder, broke the skateboard. And I was pretty sure there for a couple seconds that Darby Allin possibly broke his ankle or his leg, because you could see that he had jammed himself up and he was in some pain, and he wasn't faking it. They immediately got the cameras kind of off of him and onto some other action, but that wasn't his only spot of the night. I mean, he got back up after that. And we'll talk about some of his other spots, but Brian Cage was the mystery entrant. He was led out by Taz. Now, it's about time that Brian Cage showed up, because, there were rumors that he was a free agent back in January and that he was talking to AEW. And then, of course, it was announced that he was hurt and they weren't 100% sure when he was actually going to heal up. So it's about time he showed up. I think most expected him to win once he came out. The big surprise was him, but to me, the even bigger surprise was Taz bringing him out. Because as we all know, over the last month probably, Taz has actually been talking to Darby Allin and been wanting to give him tips and wanting to give him help. So, real interesting that Taz is now with Brian Cage. Now, what then happened was AEW basically tried to swerve us. Because when Brian Cage came out, all muscled up and pumped up, all the wrestlers pretty much attacked him. They tried to bury him under, I think they threw 5-6 chairs on him. They threw a bunch of barriers from around the ring. They even got part of the poker chip. If you watched AEW's Double or Nothing last year, they had these humongous, they look like they're about 6 to 8 feet wide poker chips. It took 6 wrestlers to carry it. And they threw it on top of the barricades and the chairs to kind of hold Brian Cage down. They went on with the match, but it wasn't, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, that Brian Cage loved it, came popping up out of there, and basically just sent everything scattering. Was flexing his muscles and went up and started confronting Luchasaurus. Boy, I cannot wait for that match. I know they're probably not going to do it anytime soon, but I cannot wait for Brian Cage versus Luchasaurus. Both men extremely athletic, both fast, both don't care to do suicide dives or to climb up on the top rope. I really am interested in that match. After Cage got rid of Luchasaurus. There was kind of a comedic skit where Orange Cassidy ended up getting on Cage's back, and Cage couldn't get all the way up, and then some wrestlers came in. But the spot that I thought was unbelievable is Cage gets a ladder. I'm trying to think how I can describe this to those of you who didn't watch. Cage gets a ladder, puts it up on the top rope in the corner with the ends of the ladder draping over the V of the corner, and then hits Darby and pretty much knocks him silly on Taz's command. Taz then yells for Brian Cage, to show him. So Brian Cage picks Darby Allin up and lays him across the ladder. And while Darby is incapacitated on the ladder, Cage presses the ladder above his head and throws the ladder out of the ring with Darby on top of the ladder, and they end up hitting the barricade ladder and all the other debris that is outside of the ring. Awesome. I mean, I don't know any other word for it. Him picking Darby Allin up and that on that ladder and just winking that ladder, that was unbelievable. And then, of course, you have Brian Cage winning it, climbing up to the ladder. Now, I saw on Twitter, I heard, afterwards, I stayed up and wanted to look on the internet and things. I saw where a lot of fans said that they felt like it was too chaotic. There was too much going on, and that it ended up being predictable with Brian Cage winning it. I enjoyed it. When Brian Cage came out, yes, I was pretty sure that that's who was winning it. But as far as being chaotic, I will take chaotic every time over people getting hit and then laying there for 5 minutes until it's their turn to get up and do something again. I actually liked, a wide angle of the ring, and you could see two people on the left side fighting outside the ring. There were two people inside the ring. There were two people outside on the other side, and they had a ladder and were hitting each other. I like that. I know that a lot of people thought that was chaotic, but you didn't have people, just laying around. So I like that. Of course, we got the shot with Brian Cage holding up the poker chip and Taz standing behind him. So, looking forward to see Jon Moxley take on Brian Cage. I know that Moxley has to get by Brody Lee tonight, but I like that he's fighting three big guys in a row. I mean, when you think about it, he's defended against Jake Hager in, the no fans, empty stadium, all things go. He's defending tonight against Brody Lee, and that if he wins that, he'll be defending against Brian Cage. So I really like how they're putting Jon Moxley through Murderer's Row almost. I mean, if you throw Chris Jericho in there, it is a more Murderer's Row. So really like that. I was shocked of the next match. The next match was MJF versus Jungle Boy. And I don't know. I thought that would be later in the card. I know some of you are going to be like, Sam, well, what match did you want next? I don't know. I like they grabbed me with that casino ladder match, and here comes, you guys have heard me say it before in other episodes, here comes the next generation of big time superstars in MJF versus Jungle Boy. I think this is going to be a rivalry we're going to see in the next 10 years if both stay healthy. I can't say enough great things about this match. I think this was the best true match of the night. You guys definitely need to look this one up on AEW, on YouTube. You need to go to TNT's site. You need to find a way to watch this match. We saw a lot of new and interesting moves by both. I loved MJF faking his injured knee, and then when Jungle Boy kind of stopped, him being a babyface, he kind of was a little hesitant to continue going. Well, then MJF cheap shotted Jungle Boy. I love that. We got to see power a la MJF. And Jungle Boy wasn't afraid to give it back to him. They got in the middle of the ring and started slapping each other, and then it turned into chops, and then it turned into strikes. And that whole sequence was really cool. But they showed a lot of technical wrestling. And I think if you haven't watched any YouTube clips or any of MLW, I think a lot of people don't know that about MJF, that he has technical wrestling. He's not a brawler, which is what he's kind of been showing, a brawler and a cheater in AEW. If you go back and watch some of his matches in MLW, he is a technical wrestler, and he's not afraid to do flips off the top rope. He's not afraid to do flips over the ropes and take out people, do suicide dives. It's only here in AEW that he's had more of a ground game. Again, if you didn't watch any of San Francisco in the Bay Area's wrestling clips on YouTube, or you're not from that area where you can attend matches, you probably don't know that Jungle Boy is also more of a technical wrestler. That he's been wrestling for quite a while and actually wanted to learn the business from the ground up. So at the end of this match, there was a lot of technical wrestling, them maneuvering around each other, pin reversals, kickouts into different moves, and you really had to watch to see the skill in that. And MJF finally pulled it out. And of course, that led to him strutting around, but this was an excellent match. And there was no interference. Marco Stunt wasn't out there. Luchasaurus wasn't out there. Wardlow wasn't out there. This was a straight up, they wanted to show what it's going to look like for the next 10 years. Them actually wrestling. And like I said, it was the best match of the night. Then, I'm surprised again. Because they decide the next match of the night is going to be for the TNT Championship. And it's going to be Cody versus Lance Archer. So a little surprised here. They are definitely wanting to grab you wake you up. If you're hearing about this on Twitter, you're hearing a great casino ladder match, then you're hearing, boom, they're showing MJF and Jungle Boy. I'm sure a lot of people were like, I gotta sign up for this. I'm not gonna wait. I need to sign up for this. But they showed then Cody and Lance Archer. Lance Archer came out wanting to prove a point. I mean, definitely wanting to prove a point. Within seconds, Archer grabbed Cody and he hit the blackout right away to make everyone think this was gonna be a blowout and he's taking this championship. But I'll tell you what, Cody rolled out immediately and got out of the ring, tried to regain his focus. When he got back in, Archer really wanted to show off his power, and Cody focused on Lance's midsection, which kind of shocked me that he didn't focus on his hand and wrist, which is what Cody seems to have been focused on over the last couple months on his opponents. But I guess he felt, maybe Lance would have been concentrating on that. So he focused on his midsection. Then we reached a point where Iron Anderson ended up getting involved. He hit Lance with a low blow when Lance was on the top rope. He was getting ready to walk across the top rope and do a move. And like I said, Iron hit him with a low blow. Obviously the referee saw that. And instead of just throwing Iron Anderson out, he actually threw Iron Anderson and Jake Roberts out of the match, which upset Jake Roberts and Lance Archer. Well, right after he's thrown out, it looks like Jake Roberts basically just walked backstage, got in his bag, and came back out with his snake. And it kind of, for a minute, became a little bit of chaos. Mike Tyson was there to present the belt, as all of us know. And he got up and acted like he was going after Jake Roberts. And Jake Roberts took off. Mike Tyson scared him. And while Lance was distracted, Cody hit 2 crossroads on Lance and pulled off the victory. And Mike Tyson, of course, presented him with the belt. So I look for this coming week on Dynamite for Lance Archer and Jake Roberts to possibly say something about that. And, of course, say that Mike Tyson was on Cody's side or something along those lines. Then we get Chris Statlander versus Penelope Ford. Dr. Britt Baker was injured. She's not cleared for action. She says she will be giving an update on her condition Wednesday night on Dynamite, that we should not listen to anyone but her. But Ford obviously was escorted out by Kip Sabian, who appeared to be distracting Ford. He seemed to be focused on her, and I don't know whether she was looking for him to coach her or get involved or exactly what, but she seemed to be really distracted, and that allowed Chris Statlander to hit her with the Big Bang Theory for the win. Now, this match wasn't bad, wasn't good, but, it wasn't bad. I still say AEW has to go out and sign some women's talent and really get them coached up. Tessa Blanchard. You guys know that I want them to sign Tessa Blanchard. I really think that with her being a part of WOW Women of Wrestling and she goes out there and trains those women, that she can help Kenny Omega while he is working on his own stuff, train the women and get them up to speed and really grow with AEW. But I am impressed with Chris Statlander and how far she's came since, her year in AEW. Then we get Shawn Spears versus Dustin Rhodes. Now, if you watched last week's Dynamite or you heard my episode on it, you know that Shawn Spears showed up kind of like a news anchor, reported that Dustin Rhodes had retired, but that he challenged him. And he basically also challenged AEW to make it so. So, I really didn't understand this match. I didn't feel like there was a build-up for it. I didn't get it. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Shawn Spears comes out in a suit. Not in his wrestling garb, but in a suit. And he announces that he has been all over the bike. He hasn't seen Dustin Rhodes and that he's not there. So Dustin's music hits and Shawn Spears looks really concerned and then immediately starts laughing, turns to the camera and says, I asked them to do that. I wanted to fool you guys into thinking Dustin Rhodes is here. He's not. So he calls the referee up and tells him to count him out so that he can win. Well, Dustin's music hits again. And Shawn Spears says, oh, you guys only had to do it once. I mean, it was a joke once. I just wanted you guys to play that joke once. Well, Brandy Rhodes comes walking out. And she's immediately followed by Dustin. And Spears is not real excited about it. Dustin ends up stripping Shawn Spears to his underwear and his socks. He throws Shawn Spears around a little bit, and as he does, Shawn Spears' underwear slides down. So Dustin decides to spank him on his bare bottom. And as Spears is pulling up his underwear, he is trying to get away and turns to yell at the cameraman, and the cameraman shoots the camera down, and we find that Shawn Spears has a picture of Tully Blanchard on his underwear. Not sure what Tully thinks of that. Definitely not sure what Tessa thinks of her dad being on another man's underwear. But it was kind of funny. Dustin gets him back in the ring and hits the final reckoning for the win. I liked this match. I didn't understand why it was made or exactly why we needed it. But it was a good comedy match. And I like that AEW is keeping comedy in their matches. That's been a part of wrestling for years. 50, 60, 70 years. They've always had comedy matches, and I love that. I love Colt Cabana's style of wrestling. Boom Boom, usually has some comedic tendencies in there. I enjoy that, and so I really like this as kind of a break. We have shown you 4 good matches. This is your intermission. This is your comedy. This is you to enjoy yourself, because get ready for what's coming next. Because what they start showing us next is basically the main events. The first one out is AEW's Women's Championship. It's Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida. And Nyla comes out with her kendo stick and her mask, and she is wanting to intimidate Shida. She immediately tried to use it, and Shida took it away from her. Nia then used her power to basically throw Shida around, and they ended up outside, they ended up back in, they were all over the place, and Shida finally hit her with a running knee and then a falcon arrow. She tried to pin Nyla, and Nyla just wouldn't be pinned. So Shida goes out and gets Nyla's kendo stick and broke it over Nyla. And then again hit the running knee, and that's when she pinned Nyla to become the new women's championship. And I'll tell you what, if anybody deserves it, it is Shida. She has been there through this whole pandemic, no matter whether they were live in Florida, they were taping in Florida, they were taping in Georgia, they were live wherever. They come back to Florida. No matter where they went, she went. She has been undefeated, and I'm glad to see her finally get this women's championship. And hopefully they keep it on her a while and let her build up some steam with it. Then we get the final match, which is the live section of the pay-per-view, and that is the AEW World Championship. And we're getting Jon Moxley versus Mr. Brody Lee. Now, what was surprising to me is both of them did suicide dives in the opening minutes of the match. At different points, each of them ended up outside, and the other one did a suicide dive to take them down. As to be expected, there was a lot of brawling in this one, slamming each other into barricades, and not a whole lot of wrestling. Which, I'm going to be real honest with you, I love Jon Moxley. I can't tell you guys that enough. I think he's wonderful. I do want to see him wrestle more, though. I think that's the thing that I didn't know I wanted until I watched him in New Japan. And in New Japan, he does wrestle more than what he does in AEW. And I like when Jon Moxley does them both, when he brawls and does some wrestling. So what ended up happening was they were actually on the ramp from the stage to the ring, and Moxley hit the paradigm shift, and the ramp broke. And it fell through. Both men ended up falling through. People rushed over to make sure, they were okay and everything. You could see the sheets of plywood and everything that they had went through. John Moxley climbed out, and as Brody Lee climbed out, he was bleeding. And when he got up, he was staggering a little bit, like he possibly had a concussion from the paradigm shift and hitting the floor. He tried to do a discus lariat, but Moxley basically ducked it, got him in a paradigm shift, then got him up and did another paradigm shift before getting him in a rear naked choke like UFC. And Brody Lee went to sleep. And, of course, John Moxley got the win. I love this. I can't tell you how much I love this. I know a lot of people on the internet did not. I did. I like this new part of John Moxley's arsenal. I called a couple episodes ago. It's probably been 2 months ago. I think it was back at when he took on Jake Hager. I said he needed a submission move. If the rear naked choke is going to be his submission move, hey, that's fine with me. I like that he showed a new side, that it's not always going to be the paradigm shift, and he put him to sleep. This allowed Brody Lee to still kind of be strong. He didn't tap out. He didn't quit. He did lose, but he didn't technically get pinned. And so this leaves him strong enough where he can still be the leader of the Dark Order and still be strong enough for a possible rematch down the line. It's not going to be anytime soon, I don't think, because I think he has to reestablish himself and get the Dark Order, of course, under control. So I liked how this one ended. Then we switched over to the last match of the night, which no one really knew what was going to happen. We had heard all day long how awesome this match was going to be. It wasn't until, I don't know, maybe an hour or two before it went on the air is when I found out that it had been taped the night before. I didn't know it was going to be. I guess when they were putting this together, the Inner Circle and the Elite realized that if they did not tape this, they were going to have some dead air where there could possibly not be a lot of things going on. So when this opens up, they are over at Jacksonville Jaguars football stadium. It is the Inner Circle versus the Elite with Matt Hardy. It is cinematic style, and what they did was go to cuts of different people. What I liked about it was you were never bored. However, you pretty much knew at all times what was going on. And I'm going to try to explain the highlights of it the best I can. The best thing that you can do is look this up on YouTube. They already have a B-roll of this, of the outtakes of it. It was borderline hilarious but at the same time, interesting and intriguing, with you always wondering what's going to happen next. Started out with the teams coming out on the football field. They introduced them as they would a football team, and the inner circle came out first. They had football uniforms on. Some of them actually had on, you could see knee pads, thigh pads. I think it was Ortiz had a football helmet on. They had numbers on that meant certain things to them. It was really interesting. Then they go over to the opposite side, and the elite come out, and they're in pretty much their normal ring gear. They're not in football uniforms, and not in pads, really. Some of them had knee pads on, but that was, to be expected. However, when they are announcing them, Hangman Page was not with them. He wasn't to be found. The thing is, from the last Dynamite, we know he's there. He showed up on Dynamite. So that was the first big, where is Hangman Page? They started off at center field, and they did a wide shot, and you saw, I don't know, probably 10 cameras on the field. They had at least 6 to 8 referees that were going to be running around waiting, because pins could happen anywhere. There was a wrestling ring also at the 50-yard line. So when the match started, everybody runs at everybody. Kenny Omega had his broom. A couple people had trash cans. Chris Jericho had his bat. Just different things. And it starts off with different people pairing up with different people and just brawling. Well, we find out real quick, Hangman Page is on a horse and comes through and immediately starts chasing Sammy Guevara. And it's almost a replay of Matt and Kenny chasing Sammy Guevara with their golf cart. Only Hangman Page is on a horse. He chases him through the back sides of the stadium where the locker rooms are. Sammy ends up kind of hiding. Hangman can't find him, and then Sammy sneaks back out onto the field. So Hangman's kind of wandering around looking for him. We see that Matt Jackson has tape around his midsection, and we're told that he has some broken ribs. But at one point, he climbs up the goalpost and does a moonsault off of it, taking out LAX, and that was pretty unbelievable. I mean, they go back to Hangman Page, and he has gave up trying to find Sammy because he has found where the lounge is that has a bar. So he gets off the horse, tells the horse to stay there, and goes up to the bar to drink. Santana and Ortiz have chased Kenny up on the second deck, kind of a concourse area, and they end up nailing him with different items, trash cans, things like that. They end up getting out a table and taking a barricade and putting it on top of the table, and then they put Kenny through the barricade and the table. So Kenny is kind of a little incapacitated. Matt Hardy comes up to save him, and so Santana and Ortiz throw him in the pool. Now, you heard me say that right. They threw him in the pool. I was not aware that Jacksonville Jaguars Stadium had a pool, but it does, and they do allow fans there in the pool during football games. But they threw Matt Hardy, and that was one of the comedic bits of the night. They proceeded to brawl with him a little bit in the pool and then dunked him, trying to ground him. And as he goes down, you see him, and they pop him up to see if he's still conscious, and he's Matt Hardy 1.0. Then they dunk him again and hold him under. They pop him up, and he's the Hardy Boys. They dunk him again and pop him up, and he's broken Matt Hardy, and then he becomes Damascus, where he tosses them around. So that was pretty funny. I mean, Jake Hager is wandering around looking for Adam Page, sees the horse, sees the sign for the bar, and decides to go up to the bar. He sits down beside of Hangman Page and has a drink. And then they ask each other, well, are we going to do this? And they decide that they are, so they get into a brawl. And Jake Hager ends up throwing Page up on top of the bar and sliding him the full length of the bar, taking out all the glasses and everything, and then throws him. Then Kenny Omega comes in because he realizes that Hangman is in the bar. And they both start beating on Jake Hager. They find a box of champagne bottles and proceed to start breaking champagne bottles off of Hager's head as he's trying to stay conscious. In the meantime, Matt Jackson has gotten a hold of Sammy Guevara and is doing Northern Lights on him. The Northern Lights suplexes. He usually does about 3 of them in a ring. Well, he did 100 yards worth on him and completed it, scored a touchdown by doing Northern Lights suplex, and then proceeded to celebrate. Nick Jackson, in the meantime, was throwing footballs at Chris Jericho. And Jericho was pulling some stuff. So Aubrey Edwards throws a penalty flag. Chris Jericho goes wild, says that she can't throw a penalty flag, that it wasn't a penalty, and he wants a replay. So Aubrey finds the replay booth, goes in the booth, and Chris Jericho proceeds to go in with her because he wants to see what she's looking at. Aubrey still, of course, calls the penalty. This goes on. I mean, you're going from one person to another. But like I said, you always know what other people are doing because as Matt is doing the Northern Lights in the background, before they go to him, you can see Nick Jackson throwing footballs at Jericho. And then they show him. When they were getting ready to put Kenny through the table in the barricade, Santana and Ortiz, you could see Matt Hardy coming up the ramp. So they filmed it in a way where you could see what was kind of happening next. There were no sharp cuts where you're like, what? Where are we going? What's happening? You know? So it all kind of made sense as they were making their way around and flowing. They end up chasing Sammy Guevara. And Sammy basically does the Lambo leap from the field up into the stands. Kenny Omega follows him. And they kind of corner him. Kenny Omega follows him from the left, and Sammy Guevara goes out on the roof of the tunnel where they had set up for the teams to come out. He's on the roof of it. Kenny Omega catches him, hits him, and then sets him up and does the one-winged angel on him from the top of the table down to the field, and they crash in to the setup that they had for the teams to come out. And Kenny rolls over and pins Sammy Guevara as Aubrey counts 3. And so the Elite with Matt Hardy won, and that's how they won. With, I would say Kenny Omega's one-winged angel was about 10 to 12 feet up in the air. It was awesome. It was better than anything that WWE has did so far. It put the Money in the Bank match to shame. Was it better than the Boneyard? No. And I'll tell you why. Number one, the Boneyard had the Undertaker. And there's no one other than Chris Jericho that could even think of competing with the Undertaker. They were two different kinds of matches. The Boneyard was a lot more serious, a lot more fighting, a lot darker. Whereas the Stampede match was meant to be funny, lighthearted. Yes, they were still fighting, but they were also doing scenes from older wrestling events and different things like that. Was it better than the Firefly Funhouse? Yes. In my opinion. For the simple fact, it was easily understandable the first time around. You did not have to watch this match 20 times to try to figure out the meaning of it. I watched the Firefly Funhouse and didn't think really there was a winner. You know, John Cena ended up disappearing, and so I really didn't get it. But as far as the Money in the Bank and the Stampede, which is what I think you need to compare, because they were shot basically the same way. The Stampede was 3,000 million times better than it. But the question that I have is it over? Is the Inner Circle and the Elite over? Or are they just over for now? Or are we going to see the Inner Circle try to come back at them this Wednesday night? Because, I mean, these two factions, they just have chemistry. But the 10 of them, I should say, I was going to say the 5 of them, but the 10 of them together, are unbelievable. But do you want to leave 10 wrestlers, 10 great wrestlers in these factions to fight each other? Or do you want to spread them out and, bring in other wrestlers? So my prediction is Inner Circle versus the Elite is over for now. I really think so. I think they put it a little bit on the back burner, and I think we see something blow up around the next pay-per-view, and if there are fans, then I think we get blood and guts. If there aren't fans, then I don't think they have a blow up until after the first of the year. And then I think we get blood and guts. I think the next time these two meet, it will be in blood and guts, because I think both teams really want to do that match, and they really want to do that match for the fans, and they have not forgotten it. Let me know what you thought of Double or Nothing. Was it what you wanted it to be, or was there something there that you thought they could have done different or done better? As always, hit me up on Twitter or our Facebook page on Wrestling Overtime, or write me on wrestlingovertime@gmail.com, and let me know what you guys are thinking about this, because I think this was really good, and I think it set a great tone for a pandemic pay-per-view. It was lighthearted when it needed to be. We got the blood with Mr. Brody Lee. We got the comedy with Sean Spears and Dustin. We got the wildness and the crazy spots with the casino ladder match. I don't think that we could have asked for anything more with no fans and it being in the middle of the pandemic. But you guys let me know. And I'm going to continue working overtime for you to give you what you want. And I will talk to you soon.